Monday, we turn the page. Monday, we set sail. Monday, we take this little pirate ship into territory never explored before. Monday, we start an off-season program that will put other imposters out of business. Monday, we shove it down there. You get it. But today's not Monday. And we're excited to put a bow on the 2025 NFL Draft. It's the much anticipated, but never quite duplicated edition of Best Picks by Round. Just 343 days until the 2025 NFL Draft. Mensch, you good?
I'm good, man.
All right, calm me down, Tucker, with some sweet music, please.
Sweet.
Hey, Mensch, let me ask you a few questions.
Here we go.
Who puts their foot on the gas during the offseason?
Us?
Nobody else, though, right?
Nobody else. I was going to say because it's us.
Who in this industry decides, you know what? It's May. Let's do an Arch Manning breakdown. Let's actually watch the tape. Who does that in this industry?
Nobody.
Yeah, who gives you a breakdown of every single potential QB1 during the offseason and gets fans prepared truly with evaluations based off of the tape and really dives in deep this time of year?
Nobody.
Nobody does it. And so when you're on a beach somewhere in July and you're like, I wonder what's going on with like the Clemson draft class. Why the hell do they have so much talent? Where can I find out? Is this like real or is this phony? You can come to us. When people are talking about Arch Manning in the 2026 draft, and we're right here. We're going to provide all of it for people. I'm excited, man. I told you last show, right? After two conversations with you, Mensch, conversations with Dan, conversations with Tucker, conversations with the boss, Marissa, and eventually a plan started to formulate because we had a preliminary schedule for the offseason. We really wanted to deep dive into this past draft and talk about rosters and talk about the NFL and how the effects. And we've done that. And we will continue to do this in the offseason. We will have mailbags. We will take your questions. We will provide answers. I have literally books of information on the NFL draft. I've got 3 of them lying right here, okay? Team stuff, roster breakdowns, 3-year tallies, all of it. And obviously all the player reports. We're going to continue to provide that in our mailbags and a couple special editions, but nobody, I looked, I spent the weekend, okay? My kids were with their Mother's Day weekend. I had a little bit of time, finally like decompressed a little bit, okay, from the 2025 draft. And I started thinking like, what's our process after talking to you? And like, you're always my governor on this stuff. If people don't realize, let's just kind of take them behind. Like, I come out guns blazing. I'm screaming about Monday and pirate ships and all that.
Me. Yes.
And you are you're the worst driver in the world, but you're the best co-pilot. You are the best co-pilot. Nobody else has attention to detail. Like, hey, we're turning up here. And I'm ranting and raving and cutting people off and honking the horn and all this. And you're like, hey, you get in the right lane. We got to exit 29B. All right. So we formulated this plan after a lot of like talks, conversations. I sat down. I looked through everyone else's content from Kuiper to Jeremiah to all to several other credible people who do it in this industry and a whole lot of buffoons. Okay. And I realized that our audience like loves what we do, our process. They love the real. And that's why we're growing at the rate that we're growing. And so why stop? Why take the foot off the gas? Why veer to a different lane and just do the typical, like, let's look at today we're going to talk about the Chiefs draft and can they get back to the top? Like, yeah, we can sprinkle that stuff in and we got all the information and we'll see what goes on in training camp and all that. But for the next 3 months, we're going to get you ready. We're going to get you ready as NFL draft fans. We're going to get you ready as college football fans. Everyone wants to know who are the prospects, like who's the top talent. So we're going to do all of that. And here we are 7 minutes into the show. And I haven't shut up about what's going on in the future, but I'm excited. It starts on Monday. So if you're watching this now, come take the ride with us. We're the lost ship at sea. Everyone was hoping that the Coast Guard would never find us.
You've never had a chance to do this, man. You've always had someone telling you where you need to be, what you have to provide, all of that stuff. And you're obviously taking it very seriously about what you want to do with this. You really want to put your stamp on this.
Yeah. So let's do it. Like,
yeah,
motherfoes truly thought that they would never see this ship again. And
you're fired up today, man.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's
you're feeling it.
Yeah, October 22nd, 2024, we started this thing, and we said we're going to be true to our process.
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to love us or you're going to hate us, but we're going to give you exactly what we do. And this is what mention I do. I failed to even mention this. The draft's over. We spent a little time taking a deep breath, like very little time, about a week. And then we review what just happened, but then we dive right in. Like I'm watching quarterbacks right now. And it's going to be on to tight ends and wide. And I told you the tape is different now. It used to be where we had to watch it by college because it was just more efficient time-wise. Now we don't. Now we've got these clips, the cut-ups, the PFF Ultimate, the catapult video. And so now I'm going through positions. And as we go through those positions, we're going to do shows specifically tailored to provide information that's never in this field, never in this space been provided before. And it starts on Monday. So enjoy this show, but get ready for Monday.
I love it.
We're the not fucking around crew. And Monday it starts again. All right. But as I said, today's not Monday. And I am excited about this, man. And you know what was fun? Today we're going through all 7 rounds. And Mensch got to pick his players from each of the 7 rounds. I've picked mine separately. He sent me an email. I've got it right here. I literally
glanced.
I glanced. We didn't work in conjunction. Like you get this. So it's our favorite picks. And favorite can mean anything. It can be value. It can be impact. It could be immediate impact. It could be long-term. It could be any of those things. I'm going to let you kick things off. We're going to start in the first round. But I just want to mention off the top, the interesting thing about this exercise for me is that I went through and as I was doing this, I'm like, God, there's a lot of guys that were interesting, like in addition to, I'll mention some of those guys as we go. But of the first round picks, there were 32 of them. Of the first round picks, Mensch, what was your favorite pick in round 1?
I went with Jalen Walker, the edge/inside linebacker out of Georgia, went 15th to Atlanta. He was the 4th best player on my board. And I get it. Let me start off here. I get it. 6'1", 243. This is not your traditional edge. And I think it scared some teams away, right? You look at him and I want to see a guy who's 6'3" or taller. I'd like to see him about 250, 255. I understand all of that. You might be concerned about whether is he a tweener or a hybrid. But to me, he's a hybrid. And in this draft, where we don't have a ton of blue chippers at the top of it, I'm looking for guys who can get after the quarterback. And you're looking at a Falcons team that's 31st in sacks or worse in 3 of the last 4 seasons. And to get what I think is the second best edge behind Abdul Carter from Penn State, who went 3rd overall, to get him at 15. And then we've talked about this a lot. He's a culture changer. He's going to come into your locker room and he's going to get people's attention as a rookie. He will not behave like a rookie. He's going to come in there, work his ass off, and expect the same from everyone else. You're getting that player at 15. I'm taking a chance, man. I get it. The frame is different. The snap allocation, where he lined up, all of that stuff is a little bit different. But I'm betting on this player, and get that kind of a player in the middle of the first round. Man, I thought that was a home run. I also thought James Pierce would have been an interesting pick too, because again, they needed help on their pass rush. He's a really talented pass rusher, but the price was so steep that we're going to have to wait and see on that one. With Walker sitting there at 15 and that player falls to you, man, I mean, I just think that's, it's my favorite pick of the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. I'm going to go with Jaxson Dart, pick 25.
I considered it.
Do you remember when I was done watching the 161 play versus pressure breakdown of Dart? when I came back and we came on the show right after that. And I said to you, he reminds me of a certain player. The instincts, the ability to extend, poised, not the fastest, but like strong.
I think so.
Who was it?
Was it Hurts?
No, Josh Allen. A lot of people did
Allen.
make
Yes.
Yeah, remember I said
yes.
And I hesitated, and obviously you got to put caveats with all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not saying he's Josh Allen. I'm still not saying he's Josh Allen.
Right.
But there were a lot of things in his game versus pressure when the bullets start to fly and you just close your eyes and think about Josh Allen. It's like climbing the pocket, but then sliding horizontal with the line of scrimmage.
The way they sense it and move. The way they sense it and move.
Yeah. But it's always moving the offense forward. It's not a lot of retreating. Like I think of Roethlisberger, I think like retreating the side. You know what I mean? Like kind of crazy.
Yeah.
His chaos was controlled for him, but it was guys hanging from his legs.
Right.
With Josh Allen and similar kind of build, like big, strong arm guys. And Roethlisberger used to be more mobile. Obviously, Josh is a whole different level. But with Allen, it's always climb, slide, chaos, but he's calm. Run when you have to. Lower the shoulder when your coaches don't want you to. Like all that stuff. I just saw a lot of that in him. And now all of a sudden, Brian Daboll drafts him. And I have to assume during this process, he saw some of the glimpses. And Brian's not an idiot. He's not, doesn't have the arm that Josh Allen does. Not quite as fast, maybe, but like pretty mobile. But there's some stuff there that worked with Josh and I that it's going to work with Jaxson and I, right? I actually remember this interesting conversation now flashing back. You talked to a bunch of different coaches and scouts and all that. I remember talking to him at Brian and Daboll in the Senior Bowl. And he has just started the process. He's like, who do you like at these quarterbacks? I know you're probably a little bit further down the road, just got finished coaching the season, you know? And I said to him, I'm like, obviously, I was like, you were just with Shadora, the East-West Shrine, but I know he didn't play. And Cam Ward, I was like, you guys are picking at 3. I don't think necessarily you're taking him at 3 with a couple of the other players that could be on the board. Who knows how this process will play out. But again, the guy of all of them that I'd like to see you work with is Jaxson Dart. Obviously, it had like less than 0% of why they drafted him, and I'm sure he doesn't even remember the conversation. But I remember starting to watch his tape and thinking, if Daboll and Jaxson could get together, it would be best for both of them. And then the 25th pick and moving up to go get him had nothing to do with the 3rd pick outside of the fact that they didn't get cute. They didn't try to move down from 3. They didn't overdraft Jaxson Dart at 3 based off of the value board and what they knew and the information coming in from around the league. We all knew that Jaxson Dart wasn't going 3, but there was some talk at one point that maybe Jaxson Dart could go 10. So managing it was part of the reason why it's my favorite pick. The fact they only gave up a compensatory, it was their second of 2 third-round picks to go move up and get him. And then the fact, and this is what I like most about it, like you've got, and I've said it 100 times, but you've got a head coach who is legitimately one of the handful of guys that can develop a quarterback and is like in the top tier of offensive minds in the coaching profession. Why is it taking this long? Why has it taken this long to allow him to go grocery shopping?
Because he had success early on when he got there with Daniel Jones. It was the worst thing that could have happened to them.
Yeah.
They went to the playoffs with Daniel Jones, and it was this, they thought they had it all figured out, and it was the worst thing that could have happened, that early success. I really believe that. They would have scrapped it earlier. He would have gotten a chance earlier on. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Did you consider taking, I considered this too. I just thought it was so early, and people are going to think it's so simple. The Abdul Carter pick at 3 for the Giants is also one of my favorite picks. And let me tell you why. It's easy to look back now and be like, oh, they got him and Jaxson Dart. Look, they could have misread that situation and all of a sudden quarterbacks start flying off the board. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're the Giants and all of a sudden you take Carter, you now are at risk for Jaxson Dart not even being a chance to get him later on. Someone else can come up and get him. There was all kinds of rumors that this team might want him. He might end up going to the Saints. All these quarterbacks could have come off the board, and then you don't look great. And the other
that's
thing
why it's my favorite pick, because this isn't just about Daboll. This is about who's pulling the trigger.
They did right thing. Right.
Joe Schoen has been absolutely abused in this industry and in the media and in the public. And quite frankly, there were some things that, like,
he deserved.
He earned some of it. He didn't earn all of it. It's usually the case, right?
Right.
Anyone in any position of power in the public eye, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing to mention here, I will say this, is there's still risk here. If Abdul Carter doesn't realize the tremendous upside that we all believe that he has and doesn't turn into the player that we all think he will turn into, and Shedeur Sanders shocks the world, or another quarterback shocks the world, and Jaxson Dart doesn't end up playing, people are not going to look back on this draft and say they did the right thing. They're going to be upset that they didn't get their quarterback. I'm just saying it's not.
Shedeur went in the fifth, and Shedeur's just not the fit for Brian.
I get it. It's not as simple as saying that Abdul Carter was the easiest pick to make it 3. There was pressure on them to get a quarterback. They did the right thing.
If reports
they read the board correctly.
There was at least one human being in that building that thought that they should take Shedeur at 3.
Right.
I don't know. We'll never know. Everyone's going to guard that with their life, and someone who comes out and says it to someone where it gets leaked, maybe they have an agenda. You just never know, truly. But I heard from people who I feel strongly that there was at least one human being in that building that was kind of nudging for Shedeur at 3. So the other one, and let me put a bow on Jaxson Dart. Another part of the beauty of this situation too is they brought in Russell Wilson. They brought in Jameis Winston. If Jackson's ready week 1, they don't owe those two guys shit. They don't.
It's true though. No, it's true.
They don't owe them anything. And they don't owe them a lot. And they didn't pay him a lot of money. What was it? 10 million combined for those two? Okay.
Right.
So they don't owe them money. They don't have a long relationship with them, and they have, to pay off past debts. But they also don't have to play. If Jackson's not ready till week 10, or if Jackson's not ready till week 1 of 2026, that's fine. So it's the perfect, we talk about Tom Brady and, it's an age-long thing, but Tom Brady planting the flag of college quarterbacks are not ready in the programs they're in. And there are a lot of people in the league that I think it's a case-by-case basis. But my whole point in this is, yes, he's coming from a Lane Kiffin offense that made reads kind of easier and simplified things and had just a handful of concepts, but did it beautifully and did it with disguise. And it allowed him to make a lot of predetermines. And so if he's not ready, then it would make sense because he's got an adjustment to make. But if he is ready, you can play him. And if his instincts and his awareness line up with what the reports are of him on the board and his football intelligence, I think he might be ready faster than everyone thought.
Right.
The first. All right,
here we go. I listen. This is what you do to me. I'm supposed to be the move along guy. We're like 21 minutes in. We haven't gone through the first round, but now my mind is going where my mind's going, and you're going to be mad at me. You're not going to want to do this, but it's the gambling side of it too. Give me the over/under on the week of Jaxson Dart, the starter for the New York Giants.
9, week 9.
Ooh, I think that's fair. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's too early.
Yeah.
The way you were talking, I thought he was coming out of training camp and he was going to be the opening day starter.
Don't rule it out. I'll just say that.
Okay.
Don't rule it out. But
you're setting the line at 9.
If our good folks at FanDuel, who thank you for keeping our lights on and had a blast with them draft season, didn't do as well this year as I thought. Some last minute information that kind of. But yeah, another runner up I wanted to mention here, Jahdae Barron at 20. Because Denver got their jokers in day 2 with RJ Harvey at running back late in the second round, in the third round. Your boy, Pat Bryant, who we'll get to in a little bit. But, Sean did a great job in New Orleans of allowing the organization, not allowing, but being just fine with the organization using early draft picks on defensive players. Let's be great on that side because I can't coach that side. I'll get the most. Give me a second. Give me Michael Thomas here. Sprinkle that in with a bunch of mid-round thirds and fifths, and so same thing here. And now you've got this defense, right? Like third in the NFL in points per game allowed. Okay, second in the NFL. Second in the NFL in yards per play allowed. Okay. Nobody throws Patrick Surtain's way. Nobody. Riley Moss is ascending. Okay. So big play opportunities are going to be there.
And they're young too. You got Benito's young. They're young, man.
Yes. And Jahdae Barron, final 3 seasons, played 43 games. He racked up 202 tackles, 19 pass breakups, 9 interceptions, 18 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. You know what? Like, you ever see the movie Michael Clayton?
Yeah, I love that movie. I love that movie.
I absolutely love that movie. This defense just got better because Jahdae Barron now becomes the cleaner.
Right.
You know, he's the cleaner.
Yep.
He's the Michael Clayton of that defense. All right, move on. Round 2, who you got?
Round 2. Listen, this was the toughest round, I think. I mean, there was multiple choices to be made. You look at that second round, man, and there are players everywhere, and there are a bunch of good fits. I went with a guy towards the back end of round 2. And I went with him because he was my guy. I had him ranked 43rd. The Chicago Bears take him 62nd, and that is Shemar Turner, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Look, defensive tackle is arguably their greatest need going into the draft, into the offseason at least. I know they signed Grady Jarrett, but going into the offseason at least, they needed a defensive tackle bad. And I think being able to wait that long to get Shemar Turner, who already the early reports, and I get, take it with a grain of salt. I understand everyone loves their rookies in mini camp and all that. But the new defense coordinator there, Dennis Allen, has talked about how violent and aggressive this kid's style of play is and how well it's going to fit his scheme and the power and the quickness. And again, Shemar Turner, you played hurt. Just remember, he played hurt last year. He was on basically a fractured leg. Look at his numbers and look at his tape from 2023 and look at that player. And to get him, again, I had him at 43rd overall. He went 62nd. I can make an argument for probably 15 players in that second round as great picks. Great picks. I mean, Travion Henderson, early second round going to the Patriots. I love that one. I mean, there's pick after pick you could talk about, but I'm going to go with my guy. Maybe not as big a name as some of the other guys. Shemar Turner, defensive tackle from Texas A&M.
It's funny you say that. I wrote down in my notes here. This is the Kuiper round where I'm gonna do my best impersonation of Kuiper because producers would always be like, all right, pick one player for this, one player for that, or give me your top 5, and you'd have 5A, 5B, 5Z,
right?
But this is my Kuiper round where I'm
it's
just
crazy, right?
Because all right, honorable mention 1, Travion Henderson. Josh McDaniels, the way he uses running backs is in the passing game and the protecting job. Like Travion Henderson is going to be a freaking monster for them, and it's not going to take a ton of snaps. Luther Burden with Ben Johnson, okay. Tyler Shuck. The fact that we're going to go through this whole thing, I think I've given so much on Tyler Shuck that he's gotten his due. But I love that pick for the Saints, and it may be the most important pick for the organization for a couple of years. We'll see if it works out. Elijah Arroyo falling to 50. What was it? 50 to Seattle. Mm-hmm. Trey Harris for the Chargers. Your guy.
Seattle also got Nick Eamon-Worry early in the second, and say what you want about him. Great fit for Mike McDonald in that scheme. I mean, great fit.
Yeah.
For that scheme.
Oh, huge.
So, I mean, just another.
If there was one organization you wanted to go play for, it was there with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't even on draft night. I'm going through them. I'm going through every pick of the draft as I'm preparing for this. I think you were off doing your ESPN.com draft tracker.
Trying to keep food on the table.
Critical. Baby girls needs a new pair of shoes, right? As Matt Davis used to say at Richmond.
That's right.
Omar Norman Lott, man. I never got to take my flowers on that. I was sitting in a room by myself screaming at people for 2.5 hours. Omar Norman Lott, the Chief saw what I saw. But all that's aside.
Who'd you go with?
It's the only time I'll pull a Kuiper on you. Mike Green, man.
This is so Kuiper. You went with a Baltimore player.
I know.
I mean, right down to the Baltimore player.
It's not the last time I'm going to throw some love down to the crab cake region. Mike Green led the FBS with 17 sacks last year, okay? Finished second with 22.5 tackles for loss. He also had 84 tackles. Led the team with 3 forced fumbles. Pass rush win rate was actually weirdly 8th among edge rushers in this year's class, but would have been second behind Jared Verse last year, 22%, okay? Threatens with speed, but it's more this blistering change of direction and snap in his hands. He is ready to make an impact in the league, and he's a street fighter versus the run too, man. It's not just pass rush. He is a nasty son of a gun. A lot of teams passed on him because of the two accusations in the past. Listen, Baltimore is equipped with a veteran locker room. Okay. Baltimore is not a big market like you would have here in Boston with the Patriots or New York with the Giants and Jets or some of the other markets. And they waited to pick 59 to do so, to take him, because when he went to market, speaking of markets, he went to market at the combine and got out ahead of the news and wanted to let everyone know that these accusations had occurred in his past of sexual assault. And I'm not like, I can't stay far enough away from all this stuff except to let everyone know I'm like, I couldn't be more disgusted by it. Have a mother, have a sister, have a fiance, and have a beautiful daughter, Alaire. So like, I'm in the same boat as most rational, normal human beings and men out there. But there was never an arrest. There was never a charge, but he brought it to market and it scared off a lot of organizations. And a lot of it, honestly, is PR and not wanting to have to deal with our first pick was this man who came out and told us a story. But Eric DeCosta believes in his organization. They have earned the ability to make decisions like this and to get one of the top 20 players in the entire draft at a premium position at pick 59. And then I look at, okay, what's the situation? You get Kyle Van Noy there. He gets to learn from a seasoned veteran, Kyle Van Noy. Van Noy's 34 too. And Odafe, the other edge rusher, he just got his 5th year option exercised. So like, yeah, they can tag him or he could be up for free agency next year. Let's see how that all plays out. But this is like vision looking ahead. And so when you have a minute and you sit back and you analyze this pick, yeah, it seems obvious, but like everything came together. And I just like, it's a combination of vision and understanding your roster and also understanding your market. I can't imagine there are going to be any other players in the second round that have a chance to make a bigger impact than Mike Green.
And trusting your vetting process too. I mean, they know everything that we know, and they went through and made sure that they felt comfortable with what was going on.
All right, round 3.
Listen, Alabama running back, Freudian slip. Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Listen. You may get your starting quarterback in the third round again. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Jalen Milroe has all the talent in the world. Best running quarterback in this draft by far. Great deep ball thrower. Now you got to figure out the rest of it. And that's a lot. It's a lot. It's a huge if. I understand that. But if you hit on this player, your ability, and again, you signed Sam Darnold to a 3-year deal. It wasn't a 5-year deal. It wasn't an 8-year deal. It was a 3-year deal. And you're hoping that he comes in and he can be what Geno was for you. And there's reason to believe he can do that. I'm a Sam Darnold fan. But I love that lottery ticket at that point in the draft. I want in on that lottery ticket. I want a chance to bring in a player with that skill set and give him a chance to develop, because what it means for you in terms of finding when you can find a quarterback at that area in the draft, and let's say he's a starter in 3 years, you still get 2 years of being able to build your roster around that. So I just think what's the ceiling here? Is Lamar Jackson the ceiling? That's crazy to think that he's going to turn into Lamar Jackson based on the tape right now. And Lamar Jackson was better coming out of Louisville. I believe that. I really do. Believe that.
Yes.
And no matter what people might want to, there was a lot of talk back then about whether Lamar Jackson was going to ever be a great quarterback. He was a better prospect coming out of Louisville. He was.
I agree.
So to say that is it's saying something if you think he can get there. But if he can get there, and you got that guy at that point in the draft, I'm taking that chance. I just, I love that pick. I love Jordan Burch, by the way. Jordan Burch is my honorable mention. I've talked about this before. He went 78 to Arizona. I was the 49th best player on the board. He's versatile defensive lineman. He can play, outside linebacker in their scheme. He can play defensive end in their scheme. I love Jordan Burch.
Yeah, it wasn't quite like round 2, but there were certainly some honorable mentions here. I'm telling you, man, every day we get closer to the start of week 1 in the NFL, the more I'm starting to think Pat Bryant may be like
my guy,
your guy. I'm excited
myself,
for you, and I'm excited for Sean Payton. I just get this sense. I'm not saying Michael Thomas, but so
it feels like it a little bit, right? Like that role.
Yes.
Maybe not that guy. Michael Thomas is awesome, but that role.
Savone Revel, I love that pick. Dallas Cowboys in that scheme with his length coming off the injury. With no chance he falls that far. 76 overall. I love that pick. I also Caleb Johnson because of the fit. Thought he could go as high as the second round. Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris, like all of it. But I went with Jalen Noel. I guess that isn't a surprise, but I did a little bit of digging here, man. Jalen Noel picked 79 overall to the Houston Texans, okay? And I've come on here and I've given every positive and negative, and I've talked about my love affair with Jalen Noel, right? Here's why this is the pick of the round for me. You ready? To sum it up, Noel is an explosive, reliable route running slot receiver. Fair? Okay, let's look at the history with CJ Stroud, bud. Tank Dell, in just 25 games the last 2 seasons, targeted 157 times. Okay? Average 14 yards per catch. So yes, Nico Collins is wonderful and all this, but Tank Dell, 157 targets. Stroud loves sudden, reliable slot receivers that can get open over the middle of the field where he's comfortable throwing the football. All right? Emeka Egbuka. Do you know in 2022 he had nearly identical receiving numbers, production numbers as Marvin Harrison Jr. in 2020?
He had a monster year in 2022.
A nearly identical. And what is Emeka? A reliable route running slot receiver. Okay, let's go back a year before, 2021. They had 2 first-round wide receivers. It's Garrett Wilson. It's Chris Olave, right? Stars. Top 10 picks. Or was Olave 10 or 11 or 12? Whatever. Real early draft picks. I think both top 10. You know who had 25 more catches and 600 more receiving yards than Garrett Wilson? Do you know who had 30 more catches and 700 more receiving yards than Chris Olave? Top 10 draft picks. You know who that was? The slot receiver, Jaxson Smith-Njigba. So we've got a history here. So this is Nick Caserio knowing his personnel. This is Nick
Olave
Caserio.
Was 11.
11. Top
Close.
11 picks.
Yeah.
Doing deep dives into what's going to bring out the best in my quarterback, okay? It's vision by Caserio, too. He may not have Jalen Noel, that is, may not have a massive impact as a rookie. That's why I didn't pick him in when we did our rookie impact stuff. I'm not sure that he will. You got Nico, you got John Mechie, you got Christian Kirk, and you drafted Higgins earlier. Jaden Higgins, his teammate from Iowa State, okay? But Christian Kirk, in that slot role, has finished the last 2 seasons in the NFL on the IR, okay? Christian Kirk has only played 20 of 34 possible games the last 2 seasons. He's turning 29 years old, and he's now on his 3rd team in the NFL, okay? So vision and understanding what makes Stroud the best version of himself, that's what Nick Caserio did with this pick.
Right, but not allowing a free agent signing from preventing you from making your team better.
That's
right?
it. Vision.
You get Kirk because you think he can play that role for you, and then the way the draft unfolds, you're sitting there and you're like, well, man, I never thought this kid was going to be here, and he could be a potential upgrade over Kirk, if not this year, maybe a year or two. Why wouldn't we take him here? No, because we already signed a free agent, because we already have depth there. You cannot allow that to prevent you from making your team better. Is it making your team better? Then let's do it.
All right, round 4. Who you got?
I could not believe this guy was the 9th wide receiver on my board, and it was the 18th wide receiver to come off. And that was Jalen Royals from Utah State. The Kansas City Chiefs get him in the 4th round. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but all the reports from minicamp are, wow, this kid is gonna play this year. And they're loaded, right? They got everyone. They got all these receivers, but I think there's a lot of bodies, and Jalen Royals has a chance to really stand out as a guy, 4.42 speed. And by the way, he tied for the quickest 10-yard split out of anyone at the combine. Not receivers, corners, anyone. 1.49. This kid is quick. 6 foot, 205 pounds, good frame. If he doesn't get hurt, I mean, he only played in 7 games last year. 7 years, only 7 games last year. If he's not hurt, I don't know. I think he goes a lot earlier, to be honest with you. I think it must be a somewhat of a concern about the durability, because he was productive when he was healthy. I know it was only for 2 years, really, that he had a lot of production, but he was productive over the last 2 years when he was healthy. I thought he was okay at the Senior Bowl. There were some people who didn't love him at the Senior Bowl. I thought he played better than some others did. To me, to get him that late was surprising to me. He is the same 10-yard split, so people understand, as Xavier Worthy, the guy they took last year out of Texas who broke the combine record for the 40. He's exactly that same kind of quickness. You're talking about a guy who's going to produce after the catch. Andy Reid's going to design plays. They're going to go into the lab. They're going to design all kinds of plays, go back to plays they know. They're going to pull up plays from BYU in 1920. They're going to do all of these things, and they're going to find a way to get the ball in this kid's hands, and he is going to make things happen once he gets into space. I'm telling you, this was a surprise to me, because I look at some of the other players, and I'm not going to get into this because I don't want to badmouth other players. I look at some of the other receivers that went before him, and I'm like, what am I seeing? How in the world?
And there's opportunity there too, man. Like there's a lot of names. There's Xavier. There's a lot of names, but there's also a lot of question marks with that group. Because you got Xavier Worthy. I'm just doing it off the top of my head. Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Smith Schuster. Okay. Yep. And we don't have to go through all the question marks there, but there are. Sky Moore's not been the guy.
Right.
And then
look at it. You're like, there's all this depth, but he could play on the inside or the outside, so they can move him around a little bit. I think he's better in the slot, to be honest with you, but he can play outside. I look at that pick and I'm like, Kansas City does it again with where they're going to get this guy.
I went with another pass catcher, Gunnar Helm. I liked him from week 2 of the season against Michigan. Who is this guy? Where'd he come from? Boy, I like it. He doesn't look like the fastest. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. But he's just got football. I like Jake Ferguson's the guy I always
compare him to. Yeah,
compare him to. Just like Jake Ferguson, there was nothing about him measurable wise or that stood out, and he fell in the draft. But to me, Gunnar Helm, he didn't run well in the 40. Like, kind of looked at the combine like he got his hoof shot off. And it turned out he had an injury. But at the end of the day,
an injury. He looked like a slab of beef when you looked at the picture of the ankle, man. It was like, how did he not break that?
But on the field, the guy knows how to get open, and he makes plays, and he does so in clutch moments.
Those are the two things. Hold on really quickly. Those are the two things I think about. One, him almost breaking his ankle. trying to stop running his first 40 at the combine. And the second is the touchdown catch that won the game against Arizona State. Just a huge play in a big moment. Those are the two things right away that come to mind with Gunnar Helm. Go ahead.
He was second on the team with 60 catches, 7 touchdowns, only dropped 2 passes all of last year. Okay. You know where I like him? I think he's underrated is after the catch. Instinct, smooth. He's not like a guy by any stretch, but he'll make that one cut against the grain. He kind of senses it. So I look at this right for Tennessee. You've got a rookie quarterback coming in. Let's bring in pass catchers. Okay. They did it. They did it in free agency. They've got veterans. They got Calvin Ridley from a year ago, obviously. They got Tyler Lockett they brought in. They've got Van Jefferson. That's all kind of short-term stuff. We're trying to get old and grow old together.
Little patchwork there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So they drafted Alec Iomanner. Okay. They drafted Chimere DK, my guy. Maybe Xavier Restrepo is an undrafted free agent. But now you got this tight end. Let's test drive him for a year. Let's see what we got. Because we got Chig Okonkwo and Josh Wiley. They combined for 80 catches last year. But you know what they did? They averaged 9 yards per catch. There's just no difference making there. So and I think Helm will level off as a number 2. And maybe it's another guy that they bring in eventually. But for now, he's got an opportunity to compete. So I like Gunnar Helm, and I like the process of thinking is organizationally Tennessee looking at it and saying, you know what, let's bring in a bunch of guys that are young now and let them kind of compete and see who weeds themselves out. Because this is a 3-year deal. This isn't necessarily a 1-year deal.
I like that approach.
Yeah. All right. Round 5.
I'm going Mitchell Evans, the wide receiver. The tight end from Notre Dame ended up in Carolina at
That's your guy.
163. Why? Listen, he's got a quicker. We're going to go in the 10-yard splits again. That's going to be my thing for the show. Apparently, he's got a quicker 10-yard split than Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. I think people look at him as a big blocking tight end, and that's just not accurate to me. He's a competitive blocker, and he's got a good frame, 6'5", 258. He's a big kid, and he competes as a blocker, but he's got more as a receiver. Before he tore his ACL 2 years ago, and he has had some problems staying healthy, most notably the ACL. But before he tore the ACL 2 years ago, I think he was trending to be a day 2 player. I think he was going to be. I actually had him in my top 100 because I just loved his tape so much. I put him in there as like 97th player on my board. That's how much I liked him. I think, and when he started to get rolling early on in the 2024 season, he was still coming back from that knee injury. It didn't really look like he was himself. And then he started to get rolling as the season progressed. And I'm looking at that roster, and they took Jatavion Sanders from Texas last year, who I love, but it is a receiving tight end. He is a number 2, number 3 move tight end who plays a role for you and
That's
can make
That's a really good point.
Make an impact in that role. You could have you could have got your starting tight end in the 5th round. I really believe that. Now the concern is the durability because of the injuries. You wonder, is this guy going to be able to hold up? He's got to get stronger like a lot of these tight ends. I think he's a competitive blocker. He's got to get bigger and stronger and continue to get better in that area. But I think Carolina really might have found their tight end 1 in the 5th round. That's how talented he is. I'll say another guy that I really liked. That was the last pick of this round. The last pick of the 5th round was Tyler Barron, the edge out of Miami. The Jets took him. I think he's wildly underrated. Tennessee transfer, led the team in tackles for loss and sacks, and they weren't big numbers. I think sacks was 5.5. They weren't big numbers, but when you watch him on tape, he's a guy who gets after the quarterback and probably got pushed down the board because of the depth of the edge class. So, that guy at the end of the 5th, I was torn between the two. I just like Evan's situation a little bit better because, again, I think he could be tight end 1.
Yeah, round 5 there were some interesting players that kind of, the McShay special, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins.
I saw your list and I was like, how did he not take him?
I know I considered him, but hey, Vikings fans, you got a raw cat. I'm telling you, call me in 2026 and let's see where we are on TID. I also like Jaden Blue. we talked about him, his fit in Dallas, the Tony Pollard role. I thought that was a really good pick. Marcus Bowe, I didn't think he was going to fall to that spot. Probably is going to be at guard. Could be. We'll see with the Giants. They have time to develop him, get him stronger. I also really, as I started to look at this, it's fun to go back and look. I love that. I love that Chris Paul pick by the Rams with that aggressive attacking defense with the cats that they got up front. And play him on special teams a little this year. Let's see what we got. See if he can develop a role. Maybe it's in nickel or dime, like whatever it is. I think that's going to be a good pick. But I ultimately went with Bradyn Swinson. I had a third round grade on this guy, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I get it. 1 year production, had a breakout year. Began at first 3 years at Oregon. Had a breakout year this past year. 58 tackles in 13 games, 8.5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, forced a couple fumbles. The thing with Bradyn Swinson is he's not great versus the run and may never be great versus the run. But I think he can get to a level where he's effective if utilized properly. But he is a good passer. For a guy that struggled to become the productive guy that he was this past year, he's refined his hand usage. Like swipe, the slap, the push pull, the rip. Like he's got a lot of different tools in his bag. The other thing too with him, and I start to think about Vrabel and kind of the versatility. Let's be multiple up front. The thing I wrote him down, I try to stay away from, he's a 3-4 outside linebacker who can drop a little bit. This guy actually showed me some stuff on tape, dropping in coverage. Okay. I gave him a comp to Kyle Van Noy.
Oh, I like that. That's a good comp.
I like just like the refinement, not necessarily the workout numbers, all that stuff. Right. But just like some guys are slippery and know how to get home, and he knows how to get home. New England needs pass rushers, man. We talked about this formula, whether it's the Ravens with DaCosta, whether it's Howie Roseman with the Eagles, Brett Veach with the Chiefs, Green Bay and what they've done. You get a quarterback, you better figure out how to get closers, pass rushers, defense. And this is the 5th round pick. So I'm not saying this is the answer. This is going to, but let's bring in guys, bring in bodies. And New England needs pass rushers desperately, man. Yeah, they brought in Harold Landry, but he was down to 9 sacks last year. He's turning 29 years old. New England had no pass. You ready for this, Mensch? You probably know. Big Pats fan.
I know it wasn't good.
You know there wasn't a single New England Patriot on that roster last year that had 6 sacks or more?
I did not know that. That's bad, though.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know how bad that is?
It's pretty bad.
5. 5 was the most. Keon White was tied for team best with 5. And you know the next up amongst returning players from last year in terms of sack number? Anthony Jennings with 2.5. This guy's going to get a chance, man. I think Swinson's got he's going to be one of the steals of the late rounds. All right, round 6.
All right, there's only one answer here.
Okay.
And that's Devin Neal. The Saints taking Devin Neal out of Kansas. But I've talked about him too much. There's a guy here's a guy that I really think that maybe people are sleeping on. So I'm going to talk about a different player who I really like. And that's the UCLA running back, not named Schlesinger. It's Kain Medrano.
Linebacker.
The linebacker from UCLA.
Yep.
Who went to the Commanders in the 6th round. And you look at this kid, he had the fastest 40 time of all the linebackers that ran at the combine. He crushed the combine. All around crushed the combine. He is so fast. You think about that speed. He's a former wide receiver. He went to UCLA to play wide receiver. He was going to be a wideout. Okay. And then Chip Kelly walked up to him and was like, hey, it's not really working out. And what do you think about making the move? Changes, ends up being a 2-year starter at linebacker, ends up being a team captain, kind of kid, you just kind of root for. But add on to this, there's 2 very interesting things about his landing spot for me. He's got to get bigger, but he's 6'3", so you think he has the frame to add some weight. But know this. Who was the linebackers coach at UCLA in 22 and 23? Ken Norton Jr. Who's the linebackers coach for the Commanders?
Yeah.
Ken Norton Jr. They knew this kid. They know this kid. They knew when they drafted him who this kid was, what they can do with him. And one of the things, and this is the second point, that UCLA did with him was use him as a big nickel. So you're looking at a player now who could do special teams. He could carve out a role in situational packages as a big nickel early on. And then if he could fill out that frame and develop into a starter, you have the heir apparent to Bobby Wagner, who apparently does not age, but at some point, it might catch up to him and they might have to find another guy.
It's up to all of us, Mensch.
You think about that kind of a player in the 6th round, late 6th round. You know him. You know what kind of player he is. He's a team captain. He's an ascending player who's still getting, he was that linebacker for most of his career at UCLA, but he was a former wide receiver. Again, and all the things that he can do for you. I look at that pick and I love that freaking pick.
Yeah, those are good points. You did your work today. I'm proud of you. Off season says who? I'm going with back to the Ravens, man. Aeneas Peebles, defensive tackle from Virginia Tech. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back to the Ravens in a second. People spent 384 of 516 snaps in the B gap. That's as a 3 technique. Get on that outside shoulder of the guard, get upfield and penetrate. That's what he is. He's like
that's his DNA. Yep,
it's his DNA. Explosive first step. Everything's moving. Feet are moving with the hands. Athletic, can get in the backfield, disrupt. He's gonna locate the football and change direction and come chase you. That's who he is. Okay. I had this in my notes and we weren't sitting there in the 6th round going pick by pick, but I never got to use this. He had a pass rush win rate of 17.9. I talked about Mike Green, how awesome he was at 22 as an edge rusher. You know how hard it is you don't find many defensive tackles that are pass rush win rate in it. That's exceptional. And if it works out, again, vision by the Ravens, and let's bring in depth and all these great organizations. Let's stay ahead. He's not going to I'm not saying he's ever necessarily going to be a starter or like this high impact player, but you know what we need as an organization? We just signed a big deal with Madubuike, right? Let's get him some rest and some fresh legs so we can enjoy the fruits of that 4 or 5 year. What was it? Like 90 million. It was a lot of money. It's little things like this when you go back and study each round of the draft and you see the vision and you're like, oh, I get what. And how about fucking Eric DaCosta, man? This is a draft where we're seeing 5th and 6th round. There's a lot of dudes, NIL, transfer portal, COVID hangover year. There's more depth in this class than ever before. What did they do? Like some other good organizations. This is the Ravens 6th round. The 6th round was their round. They got a starting kicker in Tyler Loop. LeJontay Wester, the wide receiver from Colorado, who we talked about. You might walk in that wide receiver room and be like, I can play here. I can play with these cats. 2 cornerbacks, Bilal Cohn and Robert Longerbeam. I'll never say Longerbeam without laughing.
He's a good player, though, man.
He's a good player. I was just looking for a name that no one would know and would point out the fact that you were grinding on a random Thursday night watching Robert Longerbeam tape. It's just a great name. But they got Longerbeam, Cohn, LeJontay Wester, wide receiver, the starting kicker, and now some rotational depth with Peebles. In the 6th round.
Right.
Nod.
Yeah.
All right. 7th round. Here we go.
I'm staying with the Commanders, man. I'm staying with them again. I'm going late 7th round. You get running back Jacory Croskey-Merritt out of Arizona, really out of New Mexico. I would say that. He was at Arizona last year. He played for 1 game against his old school, against New Mexico, and then was ruled ineligible for the rest of the year. The reporting is that even though, and I can't imagine how difficult that is for a player. You have finally worked your way up to an FBS level program. You're a talented player. You have a chance to showcase your skill set. And now you can't get on the field because of eligibility issues. The reporting is that he stayed engaged. The reporting is that he was a great teammate, that he was great in the building. I think that's a good sign. He goes to the East-West Shrine game, wins the MVP. Doesn't get invited to the Combine, doesn't care, goes, works out. I mean, I think he was a hot name going into the draft. I'm not surprised he got drafted. I thought he might have gotten drafted earlier. But really what it comes down to, he was super productive in New Mexico in 2023. And I love the tape. I love the tape. For a guy that runs with a narrow base, he changes directions really well. Some guys, that's hard to do when you run with a narrow base. His feet, it's a magic show to me. I'm watching this guy, and I'm not really understanding how he's changing directions and speeds as well as he is, and he is quick through the hole. And then you look at that backfield, Austin Eckler's getting older. Brian Robinson is a good, I don't think, great back. And you get Croskey-Merritt late in the 7th round. I'll tell you, it's hard. It is hard to have, we talk about this all the time. You need picks. It is hard to have a great draft with 5 picks, 5 picks. And the Commanders got Josh Connerly Jr. late in the 1st round, guy who we think could be a starting tackle. They got Ole Miss corner Trey Amos late in the 2nd round. They get one of our favorites, Jalen Lane. They get the kid Kain Medrano, who I just talked about. Then they get Jacory Croskey-Merritt. They smoked this draft for a team. And I think especially on day 3, when they only had 3 picks. I mean, I think, you want more. But I think the hit rate, to me, looking at it now in their roster, that hit rate looks high for a team that only had 5 picks.
I don't disagree. Yeah, again, it's just a deep group. I'm intrigued in round 7. There's 2 quarterbacks that I'm intrigued, not just because they're quarterbacks.
Yes.
Like, the situation they're in could not be more ideal for their skill set and for the people who will be developing them. Mike McDaniel with Quinn Ewers in Miami, perfect fit. Curtis Rourke, Shanahan.
Sneaky.
Who cares about Brock Purdy? He's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm just going to be keeping an eye in next 2-3 years. Does anything come of it?
Right.
Okay. I also love Brashard Smith, SMU. He's my runner up.
There's
I love
some good
that
ones,
in
man.
Kansas City, and you talked about that impact too. But I went with Luke Lachey because at this point in the draft, when you get to the 6th, 7th round, I heard like Howie Roseman had a good clip. Let's find guys that can be starters. Let's go fucking dig deep. Let's find guys that can be starters. Not saying they will be. We know the circumstances and why they're here, but let's go find some guys that can be, have the potential. Luke Lachey, tight end. Houston Texans. They had a really good draft. Luke Lachey. If Lachey didn't get injured and it didn't set his career back at Iowa, I think he could have been a day 2 pick.
Yeah. And the scheme too, by the way. Remember, he's playing they want to take the air out of the football.
Yes.
This is not a scheme where you're going to get the Arroyo kind of featured routes and targets or any of that stuff. You better run block if you're going to play at Iowa, man.
And like the ankle injury, had surgery, it was setback, terrible quarterback play, scheme, all of it. And even if it wasn't for the medical and some of the concern, like I still thought he could go like 4th, 5th. He went 7th late. So obviously the medical set him back a little bit too. But this is a smart upside selection because you're talking about a 6'5.5" guy who is tracking to potentially be a day 2 pick at tight end, who has the ability that you see, who had a 35-inch vertical jump, by the way, Mensch, tied for 4th in the tight ends, 10-foot broad jump, tied for 6th. Tyler Higbee was kind of the comp that I gave him when studying him on tape.
Ooh, you got some good comps today.
Thanks. He ran a 4.8.
Unusual for you.
Higbee ran a 4.8 coming out of Western Kentucky. Knee injury cut his career short at Western Kentucky, but became a reliable weapon, a decent move blocker for the Rams. Like I don't know. I think there's something there. And look, Houston added competition at I mean, they I'll just be interested. I'll be interested to see how this plays out because I think he's got an opportunity to make that roster and actually make an impact.
He averaged 14.2 yards per catch in 2022 before he got hurt. Lachey did. That's not an outrageous number, but that's a pretty damn good number.
Yeah,
for a tight end.
So, all right, that wraps it up. This was fun. Actually, it was more fun. I might have been more fun doing it and preparing, going through each round. There's so much stuff that inevitably any year you're going to miss out on stuff as it's going on, and there's so many bullets flying, and we're invading Russillo's house, and it's raining as we're coming in, and Mensch is trying to get a player. Shador Sanders just got drafted, and we get Russillo in the corner eating a sandwich, and we're trying to get everyone in place. So we missed some stuff along the way.
Almost under an hour. Almost under an hour.
Monday.
You're excited.
I'm
a little scared.
Yeah.
I'm excited and scared.
I get excited in life when the right thing lines up with the thing. You know what I mean? When it's what we do, it's who we are. And it also, I think, we'll see. This could be a stupid decision. Maybe we should talk the 2025 draft for 2 more months and then do a college football breakdown.
No.
Fuck that. We're doing our thing. And I think people are, I'm starting to get to, like, I know you guys, I know who's watching. I read the comments. We read the chats. This is what you want from us. Please. And thank you for watching on YouTube. I didn't do all that spiel today. Follow, click, keep supporting us. We made some good decisions, some tough decisions. It took a minute to decompress, but Monday, we're going to start this thing off the right way for 2026, getting ready for the college season. We're going to serve our fans, and we're going to do it the way that Mensch and I have been doing it for 25 years. We're getting back in the tape, and we're going to start doing stuff that no one has ever done before in this space, and we'll see you then. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.